The film begins in the American city of San Francisco in 1960 with two officers holding a famous criminal named Frank Morris. They put him on a boat to take him to a high-security prison called Alcatraz. We learn that Frank is one of the smartest criminals in the entire world, to the extent that he escaped from 12 prisons in America. At that point, the U.S. government had to send him to Alcatraz, because it is the most high-security prison in the world. No one has ever been able to escape from it due to its strict rules. This is in addition to it being located on an isolated island at sea. The distance between it and the mainland is 5 kilometers, which means it is impossible for anyone to escape from it, because no one can swim that whole distance to get to this city. When Frank arrives at Alcatraz, the officers order him to strip. They take his personal belongings and lead him to his cell. The next day, Frank puts on his prison uniform. The guards come to take him and the rest of the prisoners out. They make them walk in a single file line until they reach the prison cafeteria. The prisoners begin to eat. Here, Frank is surprised that there are no forks. A prisoner named Litmus speaks to him. He explains that the warden has banned any forks in the cafeteria, so that none of the prisoners can kill each other with them. While Frank is eating, he sees one of the prisoners looking at him strangely. He seemed to have evil intentions toward him. Litmus tells him that this is Wolf, the most dangerous prisoner in the jail, and that he is serving 10 years for rape. After he finishes speaking, he asks Frank to give him his pasta in exchange for the information. Frank agrees and gives him the pasta. At that moment, he notices Litmus taking the pasta and giving it to a small mouse. Litmus tells him that he has loved raising mice for a long time. He lets him know that if the guards find out, they will punish him. That is why he asks him not to tell anyone. Frank promises him that he will not tell anyone. When he finishes his meal, he returns to his cell. One of the guards comes and takes him out. He informs him that the warden wants to speak with him. He takes him to his office. The warden then speaks with him. He explains that Alcatraz is different from other prisons in America. The rules are strict because every criminal there is considered one of the most dangerous in America. He begins to explain the prison rules to him. He tells him that he is forbidden from fighting with anyone in the prison and also forbidden from stealing any tools, even simple ones, reminding him that he is serving 20 years for theft and prison escapes. That is why it is better for him to serve his sentence without problems, so that his sentence duration does not increase. Frank remains silent and does not answer him. The warden then informs him that visits are twice a month, and he asks him who from his family will come to see him next visit. Frank tells him that no one will come because he has no family, and he was raised in an orphanage. Afterward, he leaves him and returns to his cell. The warden looks at Frank's file. He notices it is written that Frank's IQ is high, exceeding the normal limit. Later in the cell, we discover Frank stole the warden's own nail clippers and he puts them inside his personal notebook. It becomes clear that he is planning an escape. A while later, he and the other prisoners go to the showers to bathe. Wolf comes over there and starts talking to him. He orders him to kneel before him in front of all the prisoners. Frank refuses, advising him to back off and leave him alone so he doesn't get hurt. Wolf refuses and begins to mock him. That's when Frank hits him in front of everyone, shoving the soap into his mouth, then tries to act as naturally as he can. He pretends to the guards that he didn't do anything to avoid being punished. When he leaves the shower, a guard orders him to go to the library to pick up books and magazines to distribute to the prisoners. Frank agrees and enters the library. There he sees the prisoner named English organizing the books. They acknowledge that the guard ordered him to distribute the reading materials. English points him toward a mobile cart and tells him it contains the books and magazines he needs to distribute. Before leaving, he introduces himself to English. He asks him what crime he committed to end up in prison. English tells him that one day he was sitting in a bar. Two young men took advantage of him being drunk and attacked him. They tried to kill him to steal his money, but he was able to defend himself and accidentally killed them both. He was then arrested and sentenced to prison for 99 years. When English asks about his crime, Frank says he robbed a bank. He was sentenced to 5 years in prison, but he managed to escape from that prison. The police caught him and transferred him to another facility. He kept escaping from prisons and getting caught until he ended up at Alcatraz prison. His sentence was increased to 20 years. After finishing the conversation, he leaves to distribute the books to the prisoners. The next day, the guards take the prisoners out to the prison yard. There, Frank meets a prisoner named Doc who is busy drawing himself, and he tells Doc that he loves to draw. Drawing is his only way to pass the time in prison. He warns him to be careful, as Wolf will seek revenge for the shower fight. Frank tells him he isn't concerned about Wolf. He leaves and goes to talk to English, asking how long he's been in prison. English tells him he's been locked up for 30 years and is the oldest one here. Frank realizes English knows everything about the prison and asks him about all the prison's entry and exit points. English tells him there is only one entrance to the prison, thus in. 2 guards stand inside and 2 more stand on the outside. He explains that this prison is unique because it's on an island surrounded by water. Besides that, it is heavily guarded with 120 guards on duty. This is unusual, as any other prison only has 50 guards at most. The prison walls are also very high, making them difficult to climb. 9. And the floor is made of solid concrete, so no one can dig and escape. Therefore, the idea of escaping from this prison is considered impossible. Since this prison was built, no one has ever been able to escape from it at all. They warn him that the prison warden is a smart and observant person. Frank tells him that every prison has a weak point. He promises him that he will discover this prison's weak point very soon. A while later, Frank stands with Doc and asks him if there is an underground sewage system to see if he can enter it and escape. Doc tells him that there are no sewage pipes underground and that those pipes are located in the ventilation room. This room is exposed to the security guards, and they can see it well. There are 2 ways to enter this room. The first is through the ventilation opening in every cell, but unfortunately these vents are too small. The second way is through the roof. It is impossible for anyone to get up to the roof because there is a tower next to the building. The guards in it point a spotlight at it all the time. After he finishes speaking, he lets him know that Wolf is coming towards him with a knife in his hand to kill him and take revenge. Frank takes off his jacket, manages to defend himself, and hits him. When the guards arrive, Wolf hits one of them so that no one interferes. But he finds the guard in the tower firing shots at his feet to scare him. They do get scared, and the guards arrest both him and Frank. They lock each of them in a dock cell. At night, the guard comes to spray water on Frank as a punishment. He tells him that fighting is forbidden in the prison. Frank gets annoyed because he was defending himself. Nothing more. A while later, the guard comes and informs him that the warden decided to pardon him this time because he didn't start the fight, and they will return him to his cell. They learn that Wolf will be locked in the dark cell for 6 months and will not mingle with the prisoners during that time as punishment. When Frank returns to his old cell, he sleeps on the bed to rest. The next day, he meets a new prisoner named Bats. He learns from him that he just entered the prison yesterday. After that, they go out to the prison yard to get some air. Doc comes to talk to Frank and tells him that he drew a picture of the warden. This is to thank him for getting him paints and allowing him to draw. At that moment, the warden passes by the cells and his nail clipper accidentally falls into Doc's cell. He enters to take it and sees the painting that Doc drew of him. Instead of being happy with it, he gets annoyed. He decides to stop him from drawing because he hates the prisoners and doesn't want them doing what they love. Because from his point of view, he thinks prison is a place to punish criminals and they don't deserve to be happy or entertain themselves. When Doc returns to his cell to draw, he is surprised that the guard has come to take his paintings and drawing tools. He learns that the warden decided to ban him from drawing. Doc gets upset and begs him to leave his drawing tools, telling him that drawing is the only thing he loves that makes him endure prison. But the guard still refuses and tells him that he cannot do anything for him because these are the orders. A little later, the prisoners go to the carpentry workshop to work. At that moment, Frank notices that Doc is upset and advises the guard to watch him because he feels he might hurt someone. Muzobila. In that moment, Doc grabs an axe, calls out to the guard, and cuts off his fingers in front of him. He tells him to inform the warden that he is the reason. When Frank returns to his cell, he sees a cockroach coming out of the ventilation duct, as insects live in the sewage pipes. Consequently, if he could widen the ventilation opening, he would be able to reach the ventilation room, and he would have a chance to escape. Then his friend English comes to talk to him. He asks him if he wants a book or a magazine, since he distributes books to the prisoners. Frank tells him he wants a magazine. He asks him about the reason that made Doc cut off his fingers. English tells him that the warden ordered the guards to take the painting tools from Doc, and he banned him from painting completely. This made Doc upset because he considers painting everything in his life, especially since his daughter, who died, loved painting. At lunchtime, the prisoners go to eat in the cafeteria. There, Frank is surprised to find his friends John and Clarence in prison. They tell him that they were arrested while robbing a jewelry store, and they were sentenced to 10 years in prison. And to their bad luck, they ended up in this prison because they won't be able to escape from it. But Frank tells them that this is the worst prison he has ever been in, but he will look for a way to escape from it. At night, Frank takes out the nail clipper he stole from the prison warden, and he begins digging into the wall of the ventilation duct with a nail file, to widen the opening so he can enter through it. But he hears the sound of the guard coming, and he quickly returns to his bed. He decides not to dig again for now, so he won't be discovered. The next day, Frank talks to his friends. He tells them that he has found a way to escape from the prison. He begins to explain it to them. He says the prison building is old and the air humidity has weakened the wall cement, making it easy to dig in the ventilation duct. He tells them their plan is to enter through the ventilation opening. After widening it, then they will be in the ventilation room and can climb the sewage pipes until they reach the roof, and then climb the fence and get outside the prison. There, they will wear life jackets and build a boat out of fabric. These life jackets and fabric must be stolen from the prison storage. Clarence asks him how they will be able to hide the ventilation opening, because their digging will be obvious and any guard will be able to see it. Frank tells him they will be able to make a model out of magazine paper that looks exactly like the opening they are going to widen, and they will put it in place after they finish digging so the guards won't know they are digging. Clarence interrupts him and says the guards check the cells every 10 minutes. And if they enter the ventilation room, they won't have enough time to reach the roof, because the guards will discover that they are not sleeping in their beds, and they will look for them until they catch them. Frank tells him that he has thought about this problem and found a solution for it. The solution is for them to make dummies out of cardboard shaped like them, and put these dummies on the bed. At that point, when the guards pass by the cells, they'll think they're asleep and won't suspect they've escaped. They all agree, saying it's a good plan. Butts decides he wants to escape with them, so he makes a request. Frank asks him to watch the guards while he digs and tap on the wall if he sees anyone coming, and he will do the same for him while Butts is digging. Butts agrees, and they decide to start executing the plan. As soon as Frank gets back to his cell, he digs into the vent. With time, he manages to widen the opening, but he faces a major problem. The clipper file doesn't stay fixed in the wall while digging because it's too small. Afterward, he goes to the cafeteria. He tells his friends what happened. He tells them he's had a good idea. It is to take a spoon and break its handle off and attach the file to it, so that the spoon handle makes the file tip strong and he can dig into the wall. They tell him that's a very good idea. Frank gathers some tools and returns to his cell. There, he breaks the spoon handle, inserts the file tip, and lights a fire to fuse them together. He actually succeeds in this and continues digging. Butts keeps watch for the guards until he sees a guard coming. Then he taps on Frank's cell to warn him. Frank is forced to stop digging and puts a bag over the vent. When the guard leaves, he continues digging. His three friends start digging as well. Over time, they manage to widen the vent, making it large. Then they start making a replica of the vent and also make dummies of themselves to put in their place in the beds when they escape. After a year and a half, Frank decides to enter the vent to make sure the ventilation shaft leads to the roof. He does just that, enters the shaft, and then climbs up the pipes. He is surprised to find iron bars at the entrance to the roof, and he won't be able to reach the roof without breaking those bars. So he decides to return to his cell before any guards catch him. The next day, he talks to his friends in the cafeteria and tells them if they can break those bars, they won't reach the roof. And the problem is if they break them, they will make a loud noise, and the guards will hear them and come to arrest them. And that's why the only solution is to melt the bases of the iron fixed in the wall so the guards don't hear them. Sexad. He lets them know he will build a primitive tool to melt the iron. He asks them how they are doing with the digging process. Butts tells him he couldn't dig in the vent and decided not to escape the prison because he is afraid. As for John and Clarence, they reveal they finished digging and made the dummies to put in the beds. Frank orders them to prepare the life jackets and the fabric they will use to make a life raft. He asks John to meet him at night in the ventilation shaft to help him melt the iron. A while later, Frank goes to the music room and steals a small fan to take the transformer from it, and he builds the primitive tool that will allow him to melt the iron. At night, he and John enter the ventilation shaft and melt the iron. Afterward, they exit the area and head to the cinema room. There, Frank talks to John and Clarence, ordering them to get ready to escape on Tuesday night. They agree and reveal that they stole life jackets, as well as fabric, and built a makeshift life raft. However, they will need to inflate it once they get out of the prison. When Frank returns to the cell, he is visited. His friend English comes to give him the books and magazines. That is when Frank lets him know he is escaping on Tuesday. He thanks him for the information he shared about the prison. English is pleased and asks him to take care of himself. Then he leaves and walks away. After that, the warden arrives to inspect Frank's cell. Frank gets nervous, fearing the warden will see the dummy covering the ventilation shaft, because if he removes it, he will see the hole he has dug. But luckily, the warden does not see anything. He leaves and walks away. Then he talks to the guard. He tells him that he does not trust Frank. He feels that he is planning something, so he orders him to transfer him from his cell and move him to another cell the day after tomorrow, which is Tuesday. Of course, this is a big problem, because Frank had agreed with his friends to escape on that day. The next day, Frank sits with his friends in the cafeteria to eat. He finds Wolf coming to talk to him. He lets him know that he is finally out of solitary confinement, and he vows to kill him to take his revenge, because he hid him in the bathroom, and because of him, the prisoners no longer fear him like before. Frank ignores his words, and he remains uninterested in what he is saying. After that, he talks to John. He tells him that the warden came yesterday to inspect his cell. He discovered that the warden did not inspect the other cells. This means he is suspicious of him. That is why he orders John to get himself and Clarence ready to escape tonight from the prison. John agrees. Frank goes to the prison yard to get some fresh air. Then he sees Wolf. He moves toward him to stab him with a knife and kill him. But English comes at the last moment and stops him. At night, Frank and his friends start the escape plan. They place the dummy they made on the bed, so the guards would think they are asleep. They enter the ventilation shaft. They climb the pipes until they reach the roof. There they find a guard standing in the tower next to them. He is holding a large spotlight to monitor the area. They move quietly until they get away from the spot. They climb down from the roof using the pipes. Then they run until they reach the back fence. They climb it and get out of the prison. They walk away quickly until they reach the island's shore. Then they put on their life jackets, and they start inflating the life raft they made to escape. The next day, the guard goes to Frank's cell to move him, as the warden ordered. He thinks he is asleep and enters the cell to wake him up. But he is surprised to find a dummy on the bed. He realizes that Frank has escaped. He whistles for his fellow guards to search for him, and notifies them that he has escaped. Then the police arrive to search for Frank and his friends, but they do not find them anywhere. An officer talks to the prison warden. They find out that 3 planes searched for Frank and his friends at sea and did not find them. He tells him that a plane found a small bag belonging to Clarence. It contained pictures of him with his family. Then the warden interrupts him. He tells him that this means Frank and his friends drowned in the water. He asks him to report this to his superiors. However, the officer is not convinced by his words. He tells him that if they had drowned, their bodies would have surfaced by now. Lali. The warden says that perhaps the sharks ate them. Dane. It turns out he wants his superiors to believe that Frank and his friends died to ensure his reputation isn't tarnished, especially since no one else had managed to escape from his prison but Frank and his friends. And the movie ends. Don't forget, if you liked the video, to hit like and leave us your opinion in the comments. And if you love Asian movies and series, don't forget to subscribe to our channel, K-Drama. We will see you in the next recap.